Hello, everyone. My name is Marko Ivanovic. I'm head of marketing communications for Ericsson, UK and Ireland. And today I will be telling you something about 5G for manufacturing. I will try to give you a little bit of introduction where we are in the terms of 5G development in the world, what are the expectations, and then speak and talk specifically about 5G cases that you're seeing in manufacturing. How can you start, where to look for help, and what would be maybe some useful tricks that will help you to actually navigate through this new world of 5G for manufacturing. So 5G has been really buzzword for last couple of at least 5 years in our industry. Everybody was talking about it. It was coming. There was a lot of things written in media about it, but it's actually happening here, and it's happening now. First 5G networks were launched in 2019. UK was one of those countries that were also very early in launching, and we also launched in 2019. And today, across the world, we have more than 130 live networks. So it's happening across the globe. There is more than 700 different 5G devices already commercially available. One interesting data point is that on average, a 5G subscriber on their phones are using about 26 gigabits of data. Which, just for comparison, today on 4G we use about 10, so it's almost 3 times more on 4G than on 5G than on 4G, and I will explain why is that so. When it comes to Ericsson, actually we were the first vendor in the world to launch 5G networks, and we did it across all 4 continents. Today, out of these 130, more than 90 networks are actually were built by Ericsson in around 45 countries in the world, and these numbers are growing exponentially. So maybe by the time you will see this presentation, the numbers will look very differently. So it's really fast-paced of change. What we are also seeing is this 5G is the fastest growing generation of mobile technology. Some of you might know Ericsson is 140 years old company, so we've been around for quite a while, and we're basically involved in innovation and inventing all generations of mobile technology from the very beginning, and we see how the progress goes and what it takes to launch a new generation of mobile networks. And basically, by our prediction, this generation will be the fastest growing ever. So by end of this year, we are expecting about 408 million 5G subscribers in the world. And we are also predicting that about 5 million new 5G subscribers will be just added in the UK. In only 5 years, that number will go to 2.5 billion. All right, so that just tells you and gives you a feeling on how fast the adoption goes. We are also predicting that almost 1/3 of all data traffic in the world will be driven by 5G networks in the next 5 years. But 5G is compared to other generations of mobile technologies is actually much more than just a smartphone. Smartphone and the usage of 5G is something that you can see most of the cases, and what is available today. All UK operators are bundling 5G with some kind of data bucket and faster speeds and maybe few extra applications, but that's kind of start of unpacking what 5G is going to bring. But even if we start for consumers, 5G actually is going to bring much more. So we are expecting a lot of different applications and services to build on top of it. Cloud gaming is going to be a big thing. Augmented reality, virtual reality applications and devices will flourish on top of 5G, and we are expecting a huge amount of innovation coming from there. I mean, you can imagine that some VR goggles for cloud gaming, if you completely free them from cables, and you can enable them to be anywhere, not just on the Wi-Fi, but across the wherever you are, essentially with high definition video, what that's going to mean for experience of virtual reality. Augmented reality goes the same. So there is a huge expectation though from innovation that will come on 5G entertainment. But also we were looking into smart cities connected traffic, healthcare, for example, where with use of 5G you could do, for example, remote diagnostics in the ambulance. So patient can be diagnosed with and the exact treatment could be defined already in the ambulance, which would then again make the process faster, but essentially it could bring saving lives. And manufacturing, of course. We started research, and which I will talk more a little bit on. We started research on 5G, let's say 10 years ago. About 20% of our workforce works in research and development in Ericsson. And when we started, we actually wanted to develop this new generation of technology with mind of these other use cases that I just mentioned. So there is a lot of big companies or manufacturers in Sweden that we started exploring. Okay, so you as a manufacturer, what would be those new use cases that you need, and how what would be the need for cellular or wireless connectivity that we need to build in order to satisfy your needs. And that's why we are saying that 5G is the, again, first generation of technology that was developed with all those other use cases in mind on top of smartphones, which is kind of bread and butter. So what is 5G? And I'm sure you've seen this, but it's actually, and today it's promoted more as a speed, so it's much faster. 4G, we know that we can achieve gigabit speeds with 5G and even more than that. There's also extremely low latency, which is less than 1 millisecond, which is again comparable to fiber, and it's only the first generation of mobile technology that can actually achieve fiber quality wireless. But it's much more than speediness and latency. There is also a reliability question or reliability benefit of 5G. Today, for example, on 4G, quality of signal that you're receiving will be depending on a number of our devices that are connected on the same cell. 5G will solve that issue with the features like network slicing, for example, where you could guarantee that each mobile device will get exactly the right amount of bandwidth and speed that it needs in order to satisfy the application that's being driven by the device, which is again something very critically important in manufacturing. Security. I mean, we are aware of security and the cyber attacks on a daily basis. So imagine once that all becomes digital, everything moves to 5G, and your factory floor depends on it. That security will be absolutely critical. And when we started design of 5G, security was actually one of the main prerequisites from the very beginning, and it's implemented from in all layers of development of the network. And positioning, very, very precise positioning will be enabled, especially indoors, which will then be useful for a lot of factory use cases, which I'll be mentioning later on. So why 5G in manufacturing? As I said, when we started exploring how 5G can look and who would be look like and who will be using it, we needed to start from the factory challenges, right? What are the challenges that 5G will be solving? And this is a study that we did a few years ago, so it's actually from 2019, and with some updates from 2020, where we looked into key factory challenges. So, where the magnitude of consumers expect customers' products to be delivered within hours, which of course plays a significant part in factory production. So you'll have much more smaller batches of very specific products that need to be customized and delivered fast. You won't have time to be completely reconfigure a factory. It needs to be much more efficient, much more fast, and be able to deliver that customization which is expected. Also, productivity questions. A lot of processes to increase productivity in manufacturing is already done, like Six Sigma and so on. But for example, a study that we've seen in America is already from 2010 to 2018, there is decrease in productivity or revenues in automotive industry. So there is definitely still this huge need to increase productivity, which can be then achieved by automation and introduction of smart factories. shortage of competence as we are developing factories and introducing new ways of working and making it more smart and automated. There will be also different competences that will be needed, especially if you have the flexibility and customization. How to actually get the people and the processes efficient so that everybody knows what needs to be done. Um, that's a shortage of competence is one of the questions that we are looking at, and where use case in smart factory will play a significant role. Um, Cyber attack, as I mentioned before, so 22% of manufacturers already experienced some kind of cyber attacks in 2019, and we can only expect that that's going to be increasing even more in the future. So really huge importance of data security is one of the main challenges. So basically, a study that we did with Arthur the Little and some of our partners is showing that 80%, 86% of manufacturers across the world are saying that the introduction of smart factory and smart factory use cases will be absolutely crucial to remain competitive on the market. So if you look here on this graph is the proportion of things that are already being automated or things that are being done by human. And these gray zones are potential for automation by 2026. And we can see that actually that potential is huge. So some things are already automated, like information processing, but there is still a huge chunk of work that can be automated additionally that will then bring those smart factory initiatives and additional value to smart factory production. Right, so if those are the challenges, we then looked at what are the really necessary, what are the use cases in the smart factory environment that needs to have, needs to have 5G in order to become viable. So we know that smart factory use cases, not all of them will need that superior throughput or extremely low latency. Some of them might not, and you might cover it with some other technologies. But there are certain, and we group them here in the 6 cluster of use cases. They're absolutely critical to have this type of connectivity as 5G is providing. Autonomous robotics. So we are talking about collaborative robots, real-time closed-loop end-to-end communication, and those type of use cases. Enhanced video surveillance, for example, digital twin, is completely dependent on such a high, almost real-time connection and connectivity, which can be wireless. And I will show you examples that we are doing already. AR support for augmented reality for training purposes and stuff working on the production lines. For example, you might have workers with AR goggles, which will be then in augmented reality navigating them on what actions they need to do in order to complete the task that they have to do. So even if they're not that skilled or maybe experienced as you would expect them, you can still navigate them through the use of augmented reality into how to do the task that they need to do. We actually implemented this in our factory in Ericsson already, and I will show you some results that we are seeing as a result of that. Monitoring and tracking is another type of use case clusters, where, for example, asset condition monitoring will be very important and something that can be enabled by 5G. Real-time automation, so that will be everything from production chain automation, distributed control systems, industrial automation, and so on. So those type of use cases. And then the last cluster is hazard and maintenance sensing, so real-time product monitoring. So those are kind of 6 clusters of use cases where 5G is absolutely critical, and where we see the biggest benefit will come from 5G in smart manufacturing. On the other hand, we are also aware that 5G is new thing for manufacturers, that there is still kind of doubts out there, uncertainties. So how do we start? What are the economics of smart factory, right? We have things that are already working well. How do we start? Why do we need to improve, right? which use cases should be the first one to deploy, what would be the return on investment, how do we actually realize the benefits of use cases, and so on. So there are still uncertainties coming from manufacturers and partners that we are working with. So we kind of looked at that cluster of use cases and tried to even simplify even more and look, okay, so from the importance level, so which clusters of use cases can bring you the biggest benefit, but also from a level of readiness and accessibility on market. So what cases can be already done today. So we kind of grouped them into these 5 selected areas. So autonomous mobile robots, collaborative robots for efficient operations, augmented reality for efficient quality inspections, asset control monitoring, and digital twins. So those are kind of 5 cases, and out of all these deployments that we have around the world are the most common deployments that we are seeing across the board, where manufacturers are going into it and implementing 5G to use for these type of cases. Here we have very simplified overview of the cases represented in the factory production chain, and this is kind of simplified production floor, where we kind of tried to map where each use case could be used and how it could be used. So we can see, for example, autonomous mobile robots could be used and for collecting material and moving final product, and they're of course 5G enabled. Then if you move to an assembly line, there are 2 things that could be done there. So asset condition monitoring during the production chain, and I will show you actually one example of that. But then we also have collaborative robots for efficient operations that will be working on the assembly line. Use case that actually goes across entire production chain would be digital twin, where this need for real-time information sharing is absolutely critical, and again, use case where 5G can play significant importance. Right, so let me give you a couple of examples. So I will start with Audi. So Audi is our long-term partner. So we started this partnership in 2018, where basically Audi they wanted as a more efficient, more productive, and flexible factory floor, and they needed actually to get rid of wires, right? So that the robots and machinery that is used for assembly lines are completely free of wires. They came with premises that the power supply is actually usually available everywhere on the factory floor, but the LAN cables are actually then adding additional layer of complexity to it. So they needed a solution that can replace completely cables and enable that flexibility, providing that high throughput, high reliability, low latency that is needed and that is provided by the cables at the moment. So we started in 2018 with replicating their factory floor in our lab in Kista in Stockholm, which proved to be right. And beginning of last year, actually, we moved to their production facility in Germany, Audi's Pre-tree lab, where we are implementing now the solution on the real network. So use cases they are exploring will be enabling controlling. So implementing on the shop floor will enable controlling robots, steering of augmented automated guided vehicles, firmware download to vehicles, and so on. So those are all use cases that are being implemented. Another case is Mercedes-Benz, again in Germany. This case is also very interesting. So they built the new factory in last year. And we are implementing. We implemented the private 5G network on the factory floor there. The thing that they were looking at and the use cases are very similar. So again, optimized production line and provide production processes, guided vehicles, and more or less very similar use cases. And what they said they're envisaging by introduction of real-time monitoring and 5G-enabled use cases they will increase production efficiency by 15% by 2022, which is really significant. Another example, so this is real-time monitoring of real-time monitoring of the asset. Asset in this case is BLISK, which is bladed disc, which is component of plane engines, which has very complicated milling process, which needs to be very, very closely monitored in order to get it right. And every single small mistake in milling process can result that the entire blade needs to be done from the very beginning. So they usually had a lot of waste and spend a lot of money to actually get it right because it needs to be so precise. So the requirement was that the production process needs to be monitored with 1 millisecond. And this is exactly what they got with introduction of 5G. They did some estimation on results. So estimation is that they will, in per factory, achieve 27 million pounds savings as a result of introduction of 5G and actually increasing more precise and precision in the milling process. Also very interesting data, which I would like to say is then the environmental impact. As a result of this efficiency, they're envisaging about 16 million megatons of CO2 emission saving per year, which again is really important component to think about. A last example, well, put your money where your mouth is. So Ericsson Smart Factory, of course, is one thing is to test with others, but we also big manufacturers ourselves. So in order to prove ourselves, but the others that is actually working with installed 5G in our factory in Tallinn. Basically, before this 5G boom, we upgraded all our production facility or majority of production facilities to become much more efficient to be able to supply world with 5G. And so we introduced 5G in our factory. Again, similar use cases as with others: automated gated vehicles, connected monitoring sensing. So AI-enabled tablets, so AI-enabled troubleshooting of products, which was actually maybe one of the most interesting ones. And we are already seeing that there is a 50% less time spent on troubleshooting of each product as a result of introduction of AI-enabled troubleshooting. And that's our example that you're seeing. So I came to the end. I only have 20 minutes. I went a little bit over. So if you would like to read more, I will send you a link of very interesting white paper that we built with a hexagon on the smart wireless manufacturing, where you can read a lot of different use cases, how 5G can be enabled, but also return on investment that can be achieved by introduction of similar cases, and then the benefits that introduction will enable to certain use cases that they're explored. That's it from me. So thank you, and I'm open for your questions. Thank you very much.